Prolife Radio is a pre-recorded program paid for by Prolife Radio.
Preserving the sanctity of life in Florida. A loud voice for the unborn. This is Prolife Radio with your hosts, Vicki and Bruce Cherry.
And welcome to another edition of Prolife Radio, the second one of the new year. Oh, Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.
Bruce Cherry in the studio with my lovely wife, Vicki Cherry. We come to you from the John Barrows Memorial Studio. Those of you who've heard that name before, but you're not sure where, John was a fixture in the pro-life community here in Central Florida, and for 25 or 26 years was always downtown sidewalk ministering to the folks at the abortion mill, or as he called it, the abortuary. And John, we lost John a couple of years ago in February to pancreatic cancer. And so he was quite a fixture on Salem Radio here in Orlando with the American Adversaries. And sadly, we never were able to get him on this show. But he left his mark for certain. He was a great man. He's gone. So enough on that point. I'm going to move along here. We start every show with prayer and Jeremiah 1:5.
Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I sanctified you. I ordained you a prophet to the nations.
Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you once again, humble ourselves, and ask you to bless this show. Bless our guest, Beth Button from Nightlight Christian Adoption, and all who hear this show. God, bless us with discernment over what we're about to discuss. Give us the words to share with folks to educate them on how precious life is and how none of us has a right to disqualify a life that you have ordained to live. God, bless us to be fruitful, bless us to change hearts and save lives. And we ask for your blessing upon all who hear this show, upon Nightlight Christian Adoptions, and upon Beth and her household. And God, we thank you. In the name of your precious Son, Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. So, as Bruce just barely mentioned right there, we have a very special guest on with us tonight, a lady that I've been trying to get a hold of for a while because it's, you know, I think it's a subject that in the pro-life movement and in general, a lot of people do not know a lot about. So we have with us today Beth Button. She is from Nightlight Christian Adoption Agency, but a division of that is the Snowflake Embryo. And so we're going to talk about that, and this all entails, and it's going to be very informative. So please, it's going to answer a lot of questions about IVF and about the embryos and adoption. Adoption's huge. If we're going to save babies, and those families cannot, for whatever reason, don't keep those babies, we need to have ways to, make sure that those babies are taken care of. So, Beth, we are so glad to have you on the air today with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
So I'm sure I did not mention all your qualifications or how you got to be where you are, but we discussed a little bit on the phone about, how we're going to proceed with this interview. And so I'm just going to let you tell us more about what your position is and what you do, and maybe explain a little bit more about IVF, because I'm sure a lot of our listeners don't have a lot of information.
Okay. Yeah, so I'll just start off. First of all, I do have to tell you I've had a bit of a cold, so I have a voice. It doesn't sound exactly like my normal voice, but I do have a voice.
Hey, I sound better on the radio, I think, than I do in person, so hey, I'm sure you will too.
I say the same for myself, but I'm glad that you invited me. I apologize if it was hard to get a hold of me, but I have been the director of the Snowflake Embryo Adoption Program for a little over 2 years. And prior to that, I was on the team in a different position. And I've been with Nightlight Christian Adoptions for coming up on 21 years now in various capacities.
So you are a good one to know all about that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I know I've had my hand in really every type of adoption, but this has been really just a great experience to be able to work with snowflakes. And like many other people, I didn't really know much about embryo adoption until, I began working for Snowflakes. So just a little history. Snowflakes was founded in 1997, and it was a result of a couple coming to our president and saying to him, we're struggling with infertility. We have heard that there are these embryos in frozen storage that are just sitting there, and the family or couple or person who created them is not going to be doing any further frozen embryo transfers, is not going to be using those embryos. Would it be possible for us to adopt an embryo? And so it took off from there, and our president at the time, Ron Stoddard, decided yes, it was possible. And the following year, the very first Snowflake's baby was born. And we have just, seen increasing numbers of babies born every year since that time.
Isn't it crazy to think you have been doing this since 1997, which was a long time ago, and a lot of people still even today have no idea what it is?
True, and we actually, for several grant cycles, we received a federal grant, which was called the Embryo Adoption Awareness Grant. And so, the whole purpose of that was to raise awareness about this as a family-building option. And, definitely there are more people who have heard of it than back in 1997, but still a lot of people who have never heard of it, who don't realize how many embryos are just waiting in frozen storage to be born, and that this really is a great opportunity for couples who are looking at adoption and looking at growing their family.
I'm just amazed that I didn't know about it sooner, but I think too, and I don't know if we discussed this on the phone. I think we did, but I think a lot of people don't even understand how IVF works. We understand that even our president is behind IVF. He thinks it's a great thing, and I do too. But I am concerned about what about those babies that are like you're talking about frozen. So, I think I was under the impression when I first started hearing about IVF that they took the sperm and they took the egg and they did not join them, so a life was not started. But that's not the case, is it, Beth?
Right. The term in vitro basically means, outside of the body. So the gametes are joined outside of the body, and then the embryo, hopefully, an embryo is formed. And we, basically one of our concerns with IVF and a lot of people's concerns is that there are so many more embryos created oftentimes than what the family is even going to use. And
can you explain why do they take so many? So you're going to do in vitro, you've had problems getting pregnant and you really want to have a child. So you go to the specialist and can you kind of lead us through that? Do you know much about that process?
Somewhat. I'm not a medical professional, but I have learned a lot since I've been working with Snowflakes. I think that especially before about, I would say 2006, 2007, embryos were frozen using a different technique than what is used now. And so they were what's called slow frozen. And slow frozen embryos have a much lower chance of surviving the thawing process than those that are frozen with the newer method, which is called vitrification. So I think that's probably one reason that so many were created, was because, doctors and patients knew that, okay, well, you're not going to be able to use all of these embryos in one transfer cycle. We're going to freeze some of them, but they knew that not all of those embryos would survive the thawing process. And so I think that is probably one reason why they created so many.
And how many are we talking? Do you know?
It just depends. I think the highest number we've ever had placed through Snowflakes was 36 or 38, which is absolutely ridiculous because no one is ever going to be able to use that large of a set of embryos.
Now, these are
in that case
actually babies,
patient,
right?
Yeah,
these are babies.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
The patient didn't realize that her physician was creating that many. But the other thing is, I think when IVF first came about, intentions were a little bit more morally sound than they are now. So now you have embryos that are created, and they might be creating extra because they're doing pre-implantation genetic testing on those embryos, not even just for looking for disease or abnormalities, but testing for gender. And so somebody might create 12 embryos because they only want girls, and then not use or even discard all of the embryos that test as male. So yeah, it's a very slippery slope, and I definitely can understand why the Baptist Church issued a statement, discouraging IVF. I understand why the Catholic Church does not support IVF. I understand why there are just other people of other denominations that don't support it. I think it's because of what it's become.
And it is a very expensive process, I'm assuming. And so if you had to go back and do it again, that would even incur more expense.
The other reason, Vicki, that they would create so many, and why they still do, the hope is, we want X number of children. Ideally, we can get as many embryos as we need from doing one cycle, because each cycle of IVF costs money. And so you can understand the logic and the thinking behind that. We want to save money, so let's just go ahead and create a bunch now. And there isn't really a whole lot of foresight into the possibility of what are we going to do if we don't use all these embryos.
Beth, we are up against a break right now, so please stay with us. We're talking with Beth Button of Nightlight Christian Adoption Agency. She's the director of the Snowflake Adoption Program, Snowflake Embryo Adoption Program, and we'll be right back with more on Prolife Radio, AM 950, FM 94.9, The Answer.
If you're pro-life, like this show, and want to support this mission, please help with your donation today. Go online to givesendgo.com/Orlando Pro-Life Radio, or make your check out to Mission Save America, Inc., and mail it to 13900, County Road 455, Unit 107-334, Claremont, Florida 34711. Pro-Life Radio is a non-profit entity, and all donations are tax deductible. Thank you.
And welcome back to Pro-Life Radio on a Sunday evening. I'm Vicki Cherry. Across from me is my handsome husband, Bruce.
And we are getting geared up for this coming Friday night for the Love for Life Benefit Gala. It's going on in Jacksonville, 54th one. It's an annual gala, 54 years of this. And Tim Tebow is the featured speaker.
And I'll bet he'll be on fire after his new baby has been born.
Yes. So you can get your tickets for that by going to the Florida Right to Life website. And that is FRL. Now, I knew I was going to mess this up. FRTL.org. FloridaRightToLife.org. And get your tickets for the gala for this coming Friday night. What was that
again, Bruce?
FRTL.org. Okay. Or just Google Florida Right to Life and go to the gala. There you go. But it's going to be this Friday night, and it's getting geared up for January is preborn.
Sanctity of Life.
Sanctity of Life and preborn month. And there's going to be, the gala will be Friday night, and then there will be a march in Jacksonville on Saturday, which we'll be at both of those. So we look forward to it. But right now we're on the line with Beth Button, who is the director for the Snowflake Embryo Adoption Program through Nightlight Christian Adoption Agency right here in Central Florida. And Beth, thank you very much for joining us and being with us.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
So during the break, we were talking, and Bruce always says, hey, some of the best radio happens during the break. So we are going to talk about what we were talking about on the break. So we were talking about a lot of, even the former co-host of Pro-Life Radio, he has 2 sons by IVF. And I think he even, when at the time, didn't really think about that they are babies from the time that they are joined.
That the additional embryos,
yes. And so what do we do with those? And so, Beth, you were kind of explaining what used to happen and what is how. Can you talk to our listeners about that?
Yeah, so I kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier, but the pre-implantation genetic testing, I think, has really changed the game quite a bit. And what happens is patients will pay an extra, couple $1,000s, sometimes more, to have their embryos tested after they are created. A lot of them feel that, and I think they're probably being told this by their clinics, that they will, they can help determine by doing that testing which embryos will be successful, they'll be more likely to achieve pregnancy, things like that. The downside of that is that even though there is plenty of evidence that the testing is not always accurate, once an embryo is labeled as being abnormal, or aneuploidy is the medical term, there is not a doctor in the nation that will do a frozen embryo transfer for that embryo. So what happens is you might have patients who recognize, the egg and sperm have joined, we've created this life, we've created this being with its own unique DNA and attributes, and it's had this label slapped on it of being abnormal, and now what do we do? Because our doctor won't transfer it because they don't believe that it's going to result in a pregnancy, or they believe that the child will have some type of health issues. And so it puts them really in a very huge moral dilemma. Other people don't have that dilemma, and they don't understand that embryo is already a child,
right? And
they just discard those embryos.
So kind of like even with Tim Tebow, who is going to be the feature speaker at this gala coming up, his mother was told that he should be aborted. So it's kind of similar. Obviously, he was not.
Yeah.
But we're still talking about.
There are embryos who that have. So there's abnormal embryos, and then there are those that are called mosaic embryos that have both normal and abnormal cells. And there has been plenty of research to support that. Oftentimes, our bodies are amazing. Starting at the moment of conception, those embryos can actually self-correct and result in perfectly healthy, normal pregnancies and babies. But doctors are even hesitant. A lot of them, some of them will transfer mosaic embryos. Some of them won't. Because the other side of this is that clinics are required to report to the CDC how many frozen embryo transfers they've done and how many pregnancies have resulted from those frozen embryo transfers. And then that information is readily available online to patients. And so the clinics want to keep those percentages high so that they can keep bringing in new patients, and they don't want to take a risk on abnormal or mosaic embryos affecting their bottom line, those success percentages.
Follow the money, yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I feel like IVF came about. I think the technology was probably well-intentioned, but now we're just getting to this point where, like I said, and it's not even abnormal embryos that are being discarded. It's embryos that aren't the gender that the patient was hoping for.
Yeah, and that's happening in the abortion clinics also. So it's the same issues, the same dilemmas, the same moral dilemmas. And what do we do? Is it a baby at conception? Absolutely. Should we be taking very good care of that baby because it is a human created in God's image. Yes, we should be.
It's very ironic to me that people will argue that embryo is not a baby yet. But by the same token, they're able to do genetic testing on this embryo that already has unique DNA. Then they want to turn around and say that it's not a baby. So very interesting, the arguments that come out of this.
Well, doesn't embryo actually mean, it's Latin for baby, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, they call it embryo because people don't know that embryo means baby, but they call it's just fetus. Like everything else. They try and fetus, embryo, that sort of, and maybe it's fetus that is Latin. I'm trying to remember, but embryos is basically the same thing. It means baby. And so
right.
I hear you in the background Googling.
I am.
Googling there.
I'm looking it up.
So there you go. But it's just with the medical profession tries to make everything sound so generic,
sterile.
So sterile. Thank you, sterile. You know, and they won't say let's have an abortion. They'll say let's terminate the pregnancy. And the same thing with the embryos. If they feel that they're not viable, they're like, well, let's just terminate that embryo.
Well, another argument is it's such a tough decision. Well, why is it a tough decision? If I went to the doctor and the doctor said, hey, Vicki, you've got this thing that we need to remove, I'd say, hey, take that out. No tough decision. Why is it a tough decision? Because everybody knows it is a child. It is a baby. That's what the tough decision is. Do I kill this child or do I not? I mean, it's horrible. And I want to, again, make sure that everyone knows I do not hate the people that have had abortions or the people that have influenced those abortions.
Right.
But we need to be speaking truth. And that is, I'm so glad you're on today, Beth, because this is, we're getting into something besides the normal abortion issue. We're getting into the IVF issue today. And, I want people to have babies. That's the whole, what is that diaper company, Bruce?
Every Life Diaper Company. They say, have more babies.
Have more babies.
Yeah,
and that is our plan. That's what God created us for, to multiply. But on the other hand, we have to be careful that is a responsibility. And we are through IVF, through pregnancies that aren't these unplanned pregnancies. And what do we do with that product, which is a child, a baby? And that's what IVF is all about. And we're talking, I had no idea the numbers. When you said that number earlier, Beth, I was, wow. Was it 38? Is that what you...
That was the most. Now, I will say, just to be fair, I do believe that doctors are becoming more responsible with the number that they are creating. So I don't know that we'll ever see a set of embryos that large being placed through Snowflakes again. But yeah, I do still think that obviously more embryos are being created than what people need, because we still have hundreds of people calling us every year needing to place their embryos with us. So, and like you mentioned before, it is definitely, financial considerations are shaping that quite a bit.
Is this something that we need more of, the Snowflake program? Are there enough Snowflake programs?
There are other agencies that do embryo matching and placement. I'll tell you, one of the unique things about Snowflakes is that, well, first of all, there are other agencies that aren't necessarily recognizing that these are preborn children. Mm-hmm. There are other agencies that also refuse to call it adoption. And so what's unique about Nightlight and our Snowflakes program is that we recognize that this is a child. The whole crux and definition of adoption is that you have a child being raised by a parent or parents to whom they are not genetically related. So embryo adoption fits that description very well. And we treat it as an adoption. So our adopting parents go through a home study assessment process. They receive education from us, just as if they were adopting an already born child. And we also involve the placing family Definitely more than any other agency in the country.
Okay.
They are the ones who are the first to approve a match. When we match a set of embryos with an adopting family, we are first going to the placing family.
Beth, I need you to hang on for a second. We're up against another break. The time just flies by. So we'll be right back, and I'll tell you what I found for the word embryo. It's coming up on Prolife Radio from the John Barrows Memorial Studio, AM 950, FM 94.9, The Answer, streaming on theanswerorlando.com.
If you're pro-life, like this show, and want to support this mission, please help with your donation today. Go online to givesendgo.com/Orlando Pro-Life Radio, or make your check out to Mission Save America, Inc., and mail it to 13900, County Road 455, Unit 107-334, Claremont, Florida 34711. Pro-Life Radio is a nonprofit entity, and all donations are tax deductible. Thank you.
And welcome back to Pro-Life Radio on a Sunday evening. I'm Vicki Cherry. My husband is right across from me, Bruce.
And I promised, I gave it a little tease. I did some researching also. I heard Beth tapping on the keys. I don't know if she came across anything. But what I found was the Latin word embryo is derived from a Greek word, which I'm not even going to, embryon, I believe is the Greek word, which means young one. It refers to the initial stage of development of a multicellular organism or human being.
Yeah. Yep. We're just a whole big bag of cells.
That's it.
And there's something else that says it means grow, I grow, or swell.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And if you're growing, you're alive, right? Just
you're
like
alive.
A plant,
you are
just
alive.
Like a seed, yes.
Well, just like the Bible says, we are fearfully and wonderfully made.
Amen.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Amen. So we were kind of talking about adoption and how Nightlight is different than some of the other programs. It is a child, and you do, when you were talking about that earlier, Beth, I was thinking, we're seeing in the news all these crazy things happening with these surrogates and these people that are not being qualified to be parents, and they're having these babies and they're abusing them, and all this horribleness. And so what you're doing is trying to limit that, making sure that child is placed in a good place, is placed with, and then also the biological parent has a say. So can you go ahead and explain more of what you were, when we had to interrupt you for the break? It goes by fast. We're already in the third segment. All right.
But yeah, so one of the things I believe that really draws placing families to us is that, one, they also believe that these embryos are children waiting to be born, and it would be much easier for them to just discard the embryos. But they want the embryos to have a chance to be born, to have a family. And then, the other reason is that they do have some control over the family, which family adopts the embryos. And, it's a hard emotional decision for people a lot of times to finally decide to make an adoption plan for their embryos that they had created, maybe fully intending to give birth to every one of those embryos. And so knowing that we are really thoroughly vetting the adopting family really brings them some peace of mind when it comes to this. And also that we encourage openness and communication between the two families so that, if you donate your embryos through a clinic donation program, it's completely anonymous and you're never going to know what happened to those embryos. I mean, I can't even imagine having no idea where they ended up, how many families they might have been split, between, and whether a child or children were ever born from that. So this really gives these families some comfort and knowing that they're making a good decision, but also that they're going to receive some updates and information about these children.
And it just crosses my mind. It's almost like it's futuristic. You may see it in a movie, but it's like there could potentially be some problems.
Mm-hmm.
You might be, what's that song? I'm my own grandpa. I mean, what?
Yeah, I mean, that's another reason that people will tell us that they chose Nightlight is because they could, I live in Kentucky. There's a clinic we work with in Louisville, and, you could donate your remaining embryos through their clinic donation program, but anyone who adopts those embryos is also going to live in the Louisville area. And so not having any communication with that person or that family, but living possibly, very near to one another is a little bit scary because, you don't want those children to end up, dating or getting married when they're actually genetic siblings.
Yeah.
So
Bruce is also from Louisville.
Louisville. See, she says it correctly. Louisville. That's it.
You can tell he knows how to pronounce it.
Born and raised there. I'll tell you an interesting story, though. You talk about it's important to know your siblings. At a point in my life, I was living. My father and family is all from Goldsboro, North Carolina, and we were living there. And I was going to school there at the time. Now, I was born and raised in Louisville, but at a point in my life, we lived in Goldsboro. And Goldsboro, North Carolina at this time was very small. And so it goes without saying, a lot of the people there I was related to and didn't know it. So I come home from school all charged because there was a school dance coming up.
You were going with your...
There was a school dance the following week, and I come home, and my dad and my uncle are sitting at the table having coffee, and they go, "How was school?" And I go, "Great, I got a date, my first date." They go, "Really?" And I said, "Yeah, there's a school dance coming." And my dad's, "Oh, I'm proud of you. So who are you taking?" And I mentioned the girl's name, and he and my uncle just both busted out laughing. And I go, "What's so funny?" And they go, "She's your first cousin." I'm like, "Oh, man."
Did you go on the dance?
No, did not. No.
Thank God.
Which is not legal in Kentucky, despite
yes,
popular
exactly.
belief.
Yes, that doesn't happen in Kentucky.
Where does it? Tennessee? No.
So anyway, but yes, that's a true story that happened. So yes, it's very important that if you're donating embryos in a small area, to be able to know who's getting them and yeah, exactly. So,
Yep.
Beth, so Nightlight Christian Adoption Agency, I was under the impression that they were only here in Central Florida, but you're in Louisville, Kentucky.
And I realized after we'd already started the show that, of course, you're familiar with our office in Central Florida because that's where you are. Mm-hmm. But we actually are licensed in 12 states, working on the 13th.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, our Kentucky office is in Lexington, but I've always worked from home closer to Louisville.
Oh, okay. So what states are you in right now?
Let's see if I can get them all. California was the original office. I'll go in order of when people joined. So California, Colorado, South Carolina was next, and then Kentucky, Missouri, Oklahoma, Texas, Georgia, Florida, Indiana, and then just recently North Carolina and Utah, and then we're working on New York State. So, yeah.
Gotcha.
Now, I'm pretty sure we only have a few minutes left of this segment and then one after. So can we talk about the cost at all? Is there like, I know that the government and Trump have been talking a lot about making adoption less expensive, that if we are going to end abortion, and praise the Lord if we can, if he does and so allows, we need to be able to afford adoption. And so what are we looking at? Is that how, and especially an IVF, I have no idea how much.
Well, we hear these stories of people who were in the adoption portal and they found out they couldn't have children. They were trying to do adoption, and it was costing $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 to go through the process, and then there was no guarantee of them still being able to adopt. So what is the, I guess, the financial need or the financial cost, if you will, for embryo adoption?
Right. So embryo adoption is much less expensive than domestic infant adoption, and Nightlight does have a domestic infant program in all of the states where we're licensed. But unfortunately, I was kind of hoping when Roe v. Wade was overturned that might make a difference, and it doesn't seem that it has really led to that. But you're right. I mean, we do have families who wait a considerable amount of time to adopt an infant. And so even our families who are waiting in our domestic adoption program will often at some point reach out to Snowflakes about switching programs, because for us, the total fee is $8,500 for adopting parents, and that includes the work that we do to bring the embryos into the program. It includes shipping embryos from point A to point B. It includes the matching process, the contracts, all of the things that are involved. It's an all-inclusive fee. And then for the people who are placing their embryos with us, there is no cost to them at all. So it is much more affordable. It's much more affordable than IVF. They're still having to pay for the medical process of transferring that frozen embryo into the patient's womb, but you're not having to pay for, the IVF itself in that whole process. So even with that medical fee involved, it is less expensive than IVF. And, there's not an exact number, I think, for everybody. It's just an educated guess. But there are over 1 million embryos currently in frozen storage in the U.S. alone. So it's really a great opportunity for, families who, some of our clients actually don't have infertility issues. They just want to save an embryo, which we think is wonderful.
Yeah.
Most of our adopting families do, struggle with infertility, and this allows them a chance to carry a pregnancy when they thought that there would be no opportunity for them to do that. So it's great for them, and it's great for placing families because they know they're not discarding these embryos and they're giving them a chance to be born.
And do they know at that point if it's a boy or a girl?
So if the placing family has done the PGT testing, the pre-genetic testing, prior to placing them with Nightlight, and we have that data, we will share it with the adopting families clinic.
Okay.
So that they can
Stop
share
right there,
it with
Beth.
the adopting family if they want to know. Sometimes
we're
they don't.
up against a hard break, so y'all listeners, you're just going to have to hold on till the next segment to find out the answer.
We'll be right back, and we'll tell you about where the March for the Preborn is going to take place as well. That's coming up next on Prolife Radio, AM 950, FM 94.9, The Answer.
If you're pro-life, like this show, and want to support this mission, please help with your donation today. Go online to givesendgo.com/Orlando Pro-Life Radio, or make your check out to Mission Save America, Inc., and mail it to 13900, County Road 455, Unit 107-334, Claremont, Florida 34711. Pro-Life Radio is a non-profit entity, and all donations are tax deductible. Thank you.
And welcome back to Pro-Life Radio on a Sunday evening. I'm Vicki Cherry. Across from me is my husband, Bruce. And on the line with us is Beth Button. And Beth, it has just been an incredible interview. Bruce has some things he wants to share before we get back to it.
Well, we've got the March for the Preborn coming up. January is March for the Preborn Life Month and Sanctity of Life Month. And we've got the March for the Preborn this coming Saturday, January 17th in Jacksonville. The event is organized by the organized by the Defending Life Alliance of Florida, and aims to build a unified and proactive pro-life coalition. And of course, Priests for Life are very heavily involved in it. Florida Right to Life's involved. Father Frank Pavone's going to be there. Linda Bell's going to be there from Florida Right to Life. We got a lot of folks that are going to be there. We're going to be there. And we urge you to come on out and join us the March for the Preborn, taking place in Jacksonville. And it's going to be this coming Saturday. So if you need more information, visit
Friday night for the
gala, but this is the march that's taking place Saturday. So if you need more information, then I urge you, go to the Priest for Life website. That's priestforlife.org, and go to the website. They'll tell you where you can join us at. It's going to be a great time, and we need all of our pro-lifers out there. And if you haven't been involved in the pro-life movement and want to be, you want to get active, this is going to be a great event for you to be at. So we look forward to seeing you. Come on up and say hi. We'd love to meet you. And we want to be there. It's going to be a good time.
You know, and for our listeners, coming up as a tease, like Bruce likes to tease all the time, these topics, we will be having a debate coming up soon between a couple very big different sides of the aisle on who should be held accountable in the abortion. Should the moms? Should the who?
We've talked about that. Mm-hmm. Should the doctors be, if abortion is outlawed and an abortion is performed, should the doctor be arrested? Should the mother be arrested? Should the father who drove the mother or the friend who drove the mother to have the abortion be arrested and held accountable? And so that's the debate.
And why or why not?
And why not?
Because there is a huge split in the pro-life movement. And so, we just need to talk things out and stay calm and know that we all are trying to do what God wants us to do.
And nobody wants to make the moms, nobody's trying to persecute them. No. But we've got to find a way to protect
end abortion.
The unborn. Yes. Mm-hmm. So let's, we're using up Beth's time here.
Yes, we are. And this has been so informative. I've learned a lot.
So Beth, if you would, how can they find out more about Nightlight Christian Adoptions, and how can they get in touch with you?
So our website is nightlight.org, and then we have a separate Snowflake site, which is snowflakes.org. And Snowflakes also runs another site, which is really a lot of just education and resources. It's called the Embryo Adoption Awareness Center, and it's at embryoadoption.org. And I really, we have, obviously, you can call us anytime. We have a separate Snowflakes line, but we also obviously have a phone in all of our offices in all 12 states that you can reach us at. We have an inquiry form on both the Nightlight and the Snowflakes website that you can just fill out a quick form that will be submitted to us via email, and then we can get in touch with you that way. We also have Facebook and Instagram and TikTok accounts that, if you would like to just check those out and get some information there. I also, after Vicki just commented on, we're not trying to be judgmental or condemning women, I also just felt like I should mention that we are not condemning or coming across as judgmental to those who have done IVF. And
right.
Many of the placing parents that contact us really were not expected to have to make this decision to be in the situation that they're in right now. And I think I mentioned before that, they're grieving. When they come to us, they are grieving because placing these embryos with another family is a loss for them. They already dealt with the loss of infertility at some point, and now they're dealing with the loss of having to place these children. So we do have resources for both adopting and placing families. We actually have an online support group for placing families where whatever stage they are in the process, if they're just seeking information, if they've already placed their embryos, anywhere in between, they are welcome to join us in those free online groups that are led by licensed therapists to just be able to share their feelings, because it's such a unique position to be in. And none of them have friends or family who have gone through what they're going through. So we really work hard to provide the compassionate resources to both placing and adopting families.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell me what is the oldest snowflake?
Yes, our miracle record-breaking baby was born in July of just last year. His name is Thaddeus, and he had been frozen for 30 and a half years.
Oh, my goodness.
Before he was thawed, yeah. So he is actually, I think they've already added him to the Guinness Book of World Records as, the oldest embryo that resulted in the birth of a child. So that was a real exciting summer for us.
Yeah. And do you know, I guess also who is the oldest one that's been born since your program started, like back in 1997? So
that would be Hannah. And
Hannah.
She's, I should know this. She was born in 1998, so she's 27.
Wow.
Now, yeah. And she's been a great advocate for the program. I
was going to ask, that was the question I was going to ask. Does Hannah know that she was a snowflake?
Oh, absolutely. Hannah's been to the White House. Hannah has been very verbal and great about sharing her story. Yeah.
Wow.
Who was that? It just makes me think of that movie. And I think, didn't the guy have the same last name as Beth Button? Wasn't the guy's name
Benjamin Button?
Are you thinking of the story Benjamin Button?
I think so.
The Curious Geese?
Yeah, where he kind of like backwards. It's almost like that, you know?
Well, yeah, I guess you could say that.
It's just, you know?
Yeah, it is, because Thaddeus was frozen, when his parents were just a couple years old. So, yeah, it is kind of mind-boggling when you
Bruce got a funny look on his face. He's like, what?
Wow. So, yeah.
See, kind of the Benjamin Button.
Yeah. So, Thaddeus is still very young, so he doesn't know he's a snowflake yet.
Right, yeah. He's just, 7 months old, 6 months old.
Wow. So,
I'm glad you mentioned that, Bruce, because we very much encourage families to be open with their children about how they came to be part of their family, whether it was through IVF or embryo adoption or any other type of adoption. Mm-hmm. It's very important for children to know the truth, and they're going to find out. Mm-hmm. If you don't tell them, they're going to find out anyway. So it's much better to start telling them at a very, very young age, and then as they grow and are able to grasp more of the details, you can share more detailed information, but
I know
we definitely encourage that.
I know if someone didn't even know they had a different dad until they went to get their driver's license, and they're like,
"Can you imagine?
No, this is not your name." And he's like, "What do you mean?" And it's like they should have known from the beginning. I know one of the ladies we had on, she said everyone thought it was a great thing that they felt ripped off because they weren't adopted, because their mom chose them, but you just had me.
Yeah, that's how it should be. It should be a special, there's nothing shameful about being adopted.
No.
Beth, we are down to about 2 minutes. How can folks get in touch with you? How can they apply to, let's say there's someone out there that wants to adopt an embryo. How do they do that?
Yeah, so we have our Snowflake's phone number is actually a Colorado number, but they are welcome to just call us. It's 970-578-9700. I have on my team 3 inquiry specialists, is what they're called. So anytime someone calls or emails or submits the online inquiry form, one of those inquiry specialists will contact them. And their responsibility is just to answer questions and share the process with families who are interested in it. And then, once they decide to apply, they'll guide them right through that application process as well.
All right.
And there's no lack of embryos, right? I mean, I think you said earlier something about 1 million, not in your organization, but...
Right, yeah. There isn't a lack of embryos in our organization. I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's another difference between snowflakes and domestic adoption, is that we always have more embryos than we have adopting families. So our adopting families only wait an average of 2 to 4 months to be matched, whereas they could be waiting, a few years for an infant placement.
Wow. Well, Beth, thank you so much for being with us today. Happy New Year.
Yes, to you too. Thank you for having me. It's been great.
And
It has been so informative.
And it's
We've had
always-
some fun. We've had some laughs.
Thank you for the work that you do. You know, it's such an important cause.
It's near and dear to our hearts, and with me, it's a mission. So, and it is with Vicki also. But with I'll share very briefly here. I'm not without sin. My whole mission now is to protect the unborn. But at one point in my life, when I wasn't walking with the Lord, I actively participated in the abortion of 2 of my own children. So, asked for God's forgiveness, was granted that forgiveness, and now I'm in service to protect those children. I am blessed to have 2 sons from a previous marriage, and
lots of new kids and grandkids.
New kids and grandkids through my marriage with Vicki here. So thank you very much for being on the show. Beth Button with Nightlight Christian Adoption Agency, and she is the director of the Snowflake Adoption Program. We look forward to seeing you all next week. Like I said, we're going to be in Jacksonville. We'll be at James Weldon Johnson Park for the March for the Preborn, and that's Saturday. That is going to be on the 17th, Saturday starts at 10 a.m. as the Prolife Expo opens up, and we look forward to seeing everybody out there. In the meantime, thank you for joining us tonight, Prolife Radio, on AM 950, FM 94.9, streaming on theanswerorlando.com.
Happy New Year.
If you're pro-life, like this show, and want to support this mission, please help with your donation today. Go online to givesendgo.com/Orlando Pro-Life Radio, or make your check out to Mission Save America, Inc., and mail it to 13900, County Road 455, Unit 107-334, Claremont, Florida 34711. Pro-Life Radio is a nonprofit entity